It seems to be a little lag here. What's going on?
Um, there's probably
Oh,
web
here we
lag.
go. Wow. Jeez. All right. YouTube is live and Instagram's live. And Jake, you're the winner this morning. Instagram is focused on you, my friend. Focused on you.
Congratulations.
Good morning,
Good morning.
everybody.
And good morning, Alex. Thanks for stepping on today. So,
My pleasure.
Right, so folks, welcome to Making Turbo Pit Fighter. We're making a post-apocalyptic sci-fi comic in real time in split screen, pencils and inks. You can see our screens a lot better if you flip on over to YouTube. If you're on Instagram, you can hear us fine, but you're just watching a little sliver of one of us. And we are welcoming Alex Turbin today, the proprietor of Funkzine and Mutandis and Random Access. We haven't had him on for a few. So, how's everything in the Alex Turbin world?
It's great. I'm happy to be here. It's always fantastic to talk to you guys and share our thoughts.
Right on. Yeah, well, we definitely got stuff to talk about today. For folks who are not familiar, you can get our Turbo Teaser Part 2, pages 1 to 12 plus bonus content. Go to kurtbrugel.com or Doom Mags, and we only have, I think, about 10 left, and they're going quick. We were saying that we're probably going to reprint that run of maybe like another 40 or 50 that'll keep us for a while, but I'm gonna make a little change to the cover and probably some of the promo stuff.
Have you thought about a color cover?
Oh, that's a good idea. No, I haven't, but that could be fun because it would really differentiate the two versions.
yeah, I like that idea.
Right. We've been talking about like a duotone variant, because
Inside.
yeah, but that would be for the inside, but obviously that would be a lot more work. So
Right.
yeah, maybe the cover would be a good experiment if to do a full color cover or a duotone cover.
Yeah, I like
Because
that.
I brought the full color cover for issue 1 to the Comic-Con, to the IC3. But that's a whiles away before we get to that, and it would also take a minute to color. I usually color in Photoshop, but could also
You color digitally?
I usually do, yeah. When I do my posters and whatnot, sometimes I just color the original, and like I'll just grab like a whole bag of different like markers and colors, and I have all these different sets of alcohol markers and highlighters, and make it all come together. But Photoshop, you have a lot better control because you're
Yeah, definitely.
original art. You got one shot at the apple. Otherwise you
Yeah.
have to try to use whiteout or something.
Yeah. I was coloring something yesterday with watercolors because I've been transitioning to watercolors for Random Access, maybe possibly. And it was I had done a page inking it with a brush, and I must have done some conjuring with my inks. I was like must have been mixing inks or something, because the ink, when I put the watercolor on, the ink started to run, and so I'm just like having a horrible time with it.
Huh. That's weird.
That means your ink. That means your ink is water soluble.
Yeah. Or
you got to get permanent.
Part of it.
It's got to get. Yeah, you got to get. Because I ran into that with the, and I actually use it as a technique now. But these Tombow brush pens, I remember inking up something really sweet in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to then color. I wanted to do some watercoloring as well. But then I was sizing the paper, so I was spritzering it on both sides to just get it to shrink, and it just like totally like created this funky like cosmic pattern, which I love. I use as a technique, but it totally screwed the drawing.
Yeah. And then once it happens, like, what are you supposed to do? You're like, you're in
Start
it.
over.
Yeah, no, that's not me. I'm not a starter over. I'm a fixer.
Me too. Me too, Alex.
Well, you could also, yeah, I mean, you could just use like thin alcohol markers for the black, you know, and
Yeah,
Sharpies and all that.
yeah,
But
yeah. I'm gonna try to fix it digitally. I'm gonna try to use the blending, and because it's just all it does really is make the because it's a skin tone that is really the issue, and it just makes the skin tone a little murky.
Mm.
So
right, yeah, well, yeah, sometimes like you don't expect it, but sometimes it's a good effect. So
yeah, that's true.
happy accidents.
Love them.
So we needed to talk about a couple things. Well, we were starting to talk offline about I think reaching out for collabs, and
Yeah,
Kurt and I have just announced last week that we have our second 6-pager ready to go. And that doesn't count the third 6-pager that's ready to, that's headed over to Ken Landgraf to see if he'll approve it. But we have 2 other ones with character designs and you know, a bunch of like sample art to get the person going. And then I got this weird email out of the blue by somebody named Michelle, and I couldn't read it because my computer was on the fritz. My email program was on the fritz, and I had to rebuild my whole email thing. So I lost a couple of emails. And you know how you're like deleting like 99 emails for every one email that means
right.
anything to anybody? So it was
Yeah,
like that, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" Because it said like guest writer inquiry, and I was like, "Are they asking me to be a guest writer, or are they trying to be a guest writer? What's going on?" So it said this message has no content, and I was so frustrated with Apple and my Opt Online server, and I was on with tech support like for hours, and we finally fixed the problem, but I lost that email. So you know, it's possible to collab with any creator, you know, if they're willing to join in your world. And you know, Kurt and I have been talking a bunch about all the different models of collaborations where you could have a paid model, you could have a partnership model, you could have a combo, you know, you could do printed copies and exchange. You know, some people are just starting out and looking for exposure. Some people, you know, might want to just, you know, be a guest on a podcast so they can promote their own stuff.
right.
You know, I mean, obviously you have your own up and running operation for a long time, but you know, it's possible that we do something for your world, you do something for our world. You know, just got to work out times and schedules, and you know, it's fun when you know somebody, you know, to kind of do that exchange. But you know, there's a familiarization process, and if someone just comes across us on YouTube, you know, they're probably like, "Oh, these guys are nuts. What is all
Yeah.
this?"
And we are. And we are. We shouldn't.
Right,
We shouldn't.
right,
We shouldn't
right.
mislead the public, Jake.
Yeah, so but I'm excited because you know, so Kurt is gonna work with me. We're gonna get some language together on like how to let people know that these scripts are sitting there available for a artist, penciler, or inker to come along and do the breakdowns and do the, you know, pencils, and you know, they wouldn't have to do the word balloons, or they could, you know, there's a lot of flexibility. But we have one story that's about Wee Lu, who is the granddaughter of Reen Paw, and they're going to be in the future this kind of like protester, but she is like a budding enhanced person. So she's like a devotee of Esoterra, who's like the most enhanced, you know, person in the future world. You know, she can manipulate matter and energy using, you know, phenomena that's based on special DNA that she has. And so she's trying to train other people to do this on their own. And this is Wee Lu is kind of like this female master kung fu character who just starts taking on a couple of these, you know, extraordinary abilities at the end. I just kind of spoiled it, but that's one 6-pager. The other one is Pitch Blend, who is a part of the Rectifiers team, and she goes in rescuing abducted youths, young girls that are abducted because they have the potential to be enhanced by the bad guys, by the Dehubertons and the Marauders. So Pitch Blend is one of the enhanced super squadron from Elevena, she flies in a flying car, she shoots guns, and she has like a little army of drones around her, that are on defense, and she's going into this like enemy territory to rescue this girl, after a distress signal comes in. So it's a pretty like tight 6-pager with a lot of action and sci-fi shit. Oops, excuse me. But those two are available, and the one I just finished is going over to Ken Landgraf to see if he'll do it as it is. It's the super team called the Casualties, consisting of Esoterra, Hellclaw, and Kromita, and they're going to also be rescuing one of these enhanced females, or potential for enhancement, except the one that they're rescuing is named Charvel, and she is 6'8" at the age of 15, and so she will go on to like realize some inherent powers, and then she'll also be enhanced by Elevena. And if all these names sound confusing, it's all part of the End of the World timeline, which is our Substack. People are free to go over there and subscribe if you want some writing in your inbox every week. But all the installments are there to check out to help make sense of all these different categories. And Kurt is showing a picture right now. Remember, folks, you need to go on YouTube to see the whole thing. But you can see we have Shankra versus the Peabots. We have the Secret Chronicles of the Duke. We have the Casualties featuring Esoterra, Hellclaw, and Kromita. We have the Q Druids, which is like a science-y segment. We have Elevena 2222, when the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And the Sentients, which is a little bit out of sequence. The Sentients are going all throughout. For example, Shankra will become a Sentient. A Sentient is somebody who is older than like 150 years old, and they're kept alive with artificial means. And finally, we have Turbo Pit Fighter at the end. So back to Turbo pages here. That's what I'm
So your timeline is how long is your timeline?
Yeah, it's about 200 years. It goes from the 2100s, early 2100s. We don't really have any stories yet, but in the late 2100s we get going, and then you'll have a couple of different generations. For example, Esoterra is Elevena's mother. Shankra will kind of start the story out, and she will become a sentient when she's kept alive through robotics and technology. So she'll be like 150, and she'll still be affecting everything that goes on in the story with her guiding hand. And then Turbo is about 10 years old when Elevena is in her late 40s or early 50s in prison. And it just one character handing off to the other, and it brings up interesting questions, because I was doing some planning with ChatGPT, and boy, is ChatGPT useless, but it helps you, like, it helps you hear yourself is basically what it I have to think of, like, how long is everybody going to live, and if they're a bad guy, if they're going to have a glorious death, or if they're a good guy, if they're going to have a glorious death. And we are going to have that. So I'm thinking about the whole life cycle of characters from birth to death, and then you're thinking of, like, all right, what would be a good 6-pager? So you're thinking of like some battle scene or some pivotal part. And then I just the characters just keep coming. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I was going to reveal to Kurt, if we had time, a new sketch for a new character that he's going to love the name of, but I don't know. I have a whole pile of that here, so we'll talk about that if there's time in a later segment. But all these are sketches that I either haven't shown in a while or have never shown. So yeah, so the timeline is really interesting, like kind of world for to people to jump in if they like, Mad Max, if they like Hunger Games or any of that, kind of like dystopian stories. I mean, that's what I love the most is like sci-fi with this like kind of like warning, about the present.
Mhm.
This is gonna happen if you don't watch your P's and Q's. But also making it original and the idea of enhanced humans. Um, I think it might be around the corner in real life. I mean, definitely longevity.
Enhanced humans.
Well, longevity is definitely
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
It's already here. If you're rich, you can harvest organs. You can clone tissues. It might even be possible to clone humans. We haven't, but there's like ethical barriers to that. But all the science is just advancing at a rapid pace, and the one good thing about ChatGPT for me is like it helps me study quantum physics and the futuristic science principles. So I'm building a lot of that into the story, but yeah, it's wide open for other collaborators to jump on in and pick a country or a state or a time, and the only real rules are we have the corporate takeover by the De Huberton family of the U.S. government in 2222. Before that, they're taking over state by state, and then they reach a critical mass, and there's kind of like this ongoing war, and there's these resistance fighters, and I focus on strong women, muscular women, but there's also going to be some tall women, and there's going to be a couple of men like the Duke. But the whole point of the gender wars is that the De Hubertons use pleasure bots or P bots to lure all the men onto their side for generations, and they have this whole military force of all young men that just join the corporate lifestyle, and then you have entire states that do it through economic pressure and blackmail and slavery. But we're seeing all kinds of examples of that in real life today. So, we're not seeing the pleasure bots yet, but
We will. We definitely will.
I mean, if you look in the dark corners of the internet, you can find, all kinds of stuff, but we don't see commercially viable examples. Like, like we don't see like the Tesla sales that you see, like millions and millions of units are being sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not seeing that with pleasure bots yet.
We will.
But
10
yeah,
years.
but
10
yeah,
years.
my theory is that it's around the corner, and once they can get over the stigma of somebody being embarrassed to have like a robot in their closet that they hump every night, or that pleasures them, or what they or has massage features or whatever. I mean, I keep telling Kurt, these things are also going to do the dishes and cook, and they might even be able to do construction and build an addition on your house.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the pleasure bot a lot. I actually have a new thing that I'm working on where I think where I have a character like that. But the question I think is going to be like, could you have a harem of them, or would you have like an interchangeable head, or something like that?
Right, like when we were kids, we used to change the Planet of the Apes head with the G.I. Joe body.
Right.
Yeah.
They used
Or
to
I mean,
just sit on.
changing a blonde into a brunette, or
Absolutely. So I'm sure the companies will offer all of the above. And somebody they could afford to, they'll be in heaven, I guess. But there's going to be politics that goes along with it, because in my story the subversion of the pleasure bots isn't just that there's a one consolidated tycoon who's a De Huberton that, like, buys out all the competition and lobbies to get all the government rules changed. Massachusetts is going to be the first state to legalize marriages between humans and robots. But
are you doing that because of Boston Dynamics, Massachusetts?
no.
Have you seen that robot that did all that stuff?
Yeah, I know Boston Dynamics is one of the leaders in American-made robots, but their price point right now, they have that dog robot and that humanoid robot. Their price point is like 40 times more than the Chinese models that are starting to come out.
Right. But the things that it can do, like I was just watching a video of it, and it was doing like backflips and crouching and moving.
Well, that's stuff. That's cool too. But in terms of selling volume at scale, you need to have some kind of practical use. Nobody wants to buy a robot to do backflips. They want to buy they want to unload the truck, or they want to have it do the laundry or whatever, So
I believe the main point of the video, though, because I've seen videos of them doing that before. It did like a course, like but I think it was powered by AI, and I think that was the main thing about it.
Right. Well, the AI is going to be the key because it has all these like motors and servo mechanisms and everything, but it doesn't know how to use them on all different situations until it encounters those situations, and then compiles this ginormous database. When this happens, do this. When this happens, do that.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing happening with the self-driving cars, right? Every time there's an accident, they're like, oh, we got a lot of valuable data from this, what not to do. So that's going to be part of it. But number one, that uses a lot of energy because AI is, very energy intensive. And number two, you need a practical use case before you have a real killer product, and you're going to, and, because once you can have a killer product, you can go up to scale, and then you can really build the factories and then lower the prices, and it just keeps feeding on itself like a snowball. So Boston Dynamics is many, many years into this, but the crazy thing that happens is that the Chinese just come in out of left field and undercut everything you're doing, and it looks like they have a humanoid robot that's not even $2,000. And I don't know if I heard, you hear these things and you wonder if there's just vaporware, or if it's just like some viral post that's misinformation. But
can you get it on Temu?
Exactly, but because none of this is really ready yet. We're still a couple years away, but they did do that with the AI, with the DeepSeek, and so now, the game is hardware and, humanoid robots or specialized robots. And guess who's getting into the game now? We know that Tesla is going to be making humanoid robots. They already have an $80,000 model. And Meta is investing hundreds of billions of dollars. I heard 500 billion in these new factories that are going to be, building out automation, AI, and I did see that robotics are going to be in there, like consumer robotics. So, the future is, it's fun to think about, but it's also interesting to think about the present and how it all, converts. What's going to?
We're not ready. We're just not ready as a species.
No.
And the level, the level and layer that we've got to penetrate is the ethics of it. You can't tell me there isn't hours and hours of conversation going on in these large corporations, because they're human and walking around no matter what gated community that they live in, that if they're releasing, China included, if they're releasing these human-like, look-alike artifacts, artifices,
synthoids.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's gonna cause way much more harm then it is going to improve. And the hook is this: if you're China, you're a Chinese company and you make a 1/25th the cost robot and you get a contract with X company or X government, and that shit goes sideways, you're on the hook. And with the Chinese government, that Chinese government is absolutely tied into the corporation
industry,
that the whole thing becomes it pushes you backwards instead of advancing, which is what the sales pitch is all of this stuff thing. My curiosity always goes to, I don't believe we ever get in time, real time information of what's really going on.
Yeah.
If you spend any amount of time in deep conspiracy theories, the connector in the conspiracy theory world is that it is going on somewhere. We just don't have the data going on. It's like, not to change subjects extremely, but it's this inability to get all the information about the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, as a self-contained thing. So there are governments and corporations right now that have underground bunkers, that have robots wandering around, engaging, interacting, and coming up with negative data. It has to be happening right now. It can't. You're not going to like the car itself. The self-driving car is a perfect example and a lesson of learning. Is you just can't release that on society because the immediate image that comes to light, that if you search for this on YouTube, you could spend a couple hours watching it, are the people who swarm these cars out of no reason whatsoever and beat them, turn them over, and set them on fire.
Yeah.
So when you release these robots, what's going to stop somebody to being so upset to just, I can just gun this thing down?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's all these ethical. It's all ethical. Is all I'm trying to put out there. And it has to incorporate machinery, for crying out loud. Where we're based, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
I maintain that within the next 10 years, I think even closer, maybe 5 years, all of these robots are going to take everybody's job. And what's going to happen when there's no jobs?
So we all sit back. We just sit back and make comic books, Alex. I mean, come on.
So a couple of
in an ideal world.
So a couple of things. First to Kurt's point, and then to Alex's. So Kurt, you know that they have approved driverless car testing in the entire state of Nevada, and right. And they've been doing this for, I don't know, 5 years now. They started on closed tracks. There are these driverless cabs now too, which I spoke to somebody who took one. I think they're in San Francisco. They go really slow, so they're not so dangerous or whatever. But all this stuff is popping up now. As we speak, we're gonna timestamp this. As we speak right now, there is a backlash against Tesla cars, but it's because Elon Musk is getting so political, and the politics are so partisan and like polarized in this country. It looks like Tesla is going to ask him to step down, or else he's going to have to step down from the government, one or the other. But the stock is plummeting. The sales are plummeting like 16% as we speak, and it's a pretty good electric car company, so it doesn't make sense that that he would like throw a monkey wrench like that. But that's the whole point, is that these billionaires just follow their own whims. Also, as we're speaking, we're just like 2 days out. It was just Thursday and Friday that the markets tanked because of new tariffs that were announced. That are going to flip the script. And what Alex was just saying about robots are going to replace a lot of workers, not all, but a lot of workers.
I think everybody. I can't think of a field that that is going to be irreplaceable.
Well, you have the creative arts, but then you also have the robot repair people. I mean,
that's what I was just going to say. That's next to the ethics. There is not enough trained human beings on the face of the earth to interface with. We're not the four of us. And correct me with your degree, if you will. The three of us. Did I say four? The three of us.
Who's
we don't have any education from grade 1 through 12 to help us interface with an AI model. There's nobody walking other than the ones that have gotten the MIT degrees and the such that are all stuck in San Francisco. Once again, you cannot release this. You know what I mean? Like, go back. One of my favorite places to go back to is the Industrial Revolution, but the turn of the century where it really starts ramping up so fast that government does have to step in. And then, basically it becomes this larger conversation. But, the horror stories, you would hope we don't do a very good job at it, but we learn from history. And we're in an industrial revolution. I hate cutting you off, Jake. I hate cutting you off. But, the thing that really I want to keep everybody on point is, I know there's a huge amount of anxiousness going on in the world. And I just want my PSA announcement to be, as it has been, grab a piece of paper and a pencil and start writing and drawing. Put those thoughts out. That's what Jake, Alex, and I are doing. And if we're being too, I don't know, politically hyperbolic or social, it is, as Jake said, this is a really good timestamp episode. Because we have crossed the epitaph, the
Rubicon.
You know what I mean? And so the reason we're working on a post-apocalyptic comic book is Jake and I start 26 years ago playing around because we just loved Mad Max, but Mad Max intro.
Well, there was a long gap.
They're a very long gap. 24-year gap. But we love Mad Max so much to the point, though, that we were critiquing the open-endedness of George Miller's "and in the year so," or not even year. It's just the world goes to shit. There's no like, like Jake has written out and given us all of these deeper explanations that support this world we're working on. It also is therapeutic. There is a thing where you can kind of like go, this is a bit fantastic.
I mean, just to recap for folks, like, we took, the time between Road Warrior and Mad Max, and, you say, well, what happened? Oh, well, everyone's fighting over the gasoline. It's a little bit more than the gasoline. It's like, medical supplies, food, and then, they get into that in Furiosa. They're like, oh, it's abundance, right? What do they have? They have abundance. And it's really just about coveting thy neighbor and aggressive, kind of militarism or imperialism, whatever you want to call it. It's a smaller scale because the whole world has been reduced to wasteland. So in our story, we're just taking it. It's like, okay, how do we get from now? And then we're going to skip, sometimes I talk about the 2000s, but we skip into the 2100s really. And then we're just trying to imagine, what's it going to be like with all this stuff that's happening now? What's it going to be like, 100 years from now? And then 150 years from now. And, this was all kind of working backwards from, page 1 of Turbo Pit Fighter, where we say, like, they came to our doors. They were knocking on our doors and just, killing people.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to be thorough, trying to think about every little thing. And it's been such an interesting journey because we're doing the prose writing as well as the comic, to think about how you get this way. And, I just keep seeing consolidation of billionaires in real life, in real time right now. We couldn't have even imagined 3 years ago when Kurt and I got back together that maybe like a handful of 5 billionaires were going to step up and finance the presidential race and stand up on the
buy it, not
stage.
buy it, not finance.
Yeah, I mean, some people are loving what's happening right now. I mean, obviously, a lot of people voted for that, and they're arguing it's good. These are our smartest businessmen. Why shouldn't they help run the government from the highest level? And they're making that argument, and I'm like, I'm just like, well, what could go wrong? Everything could go wrong.
Yeah, everything.
So my future scenario has the de Huberton family. They're eventually going to consolidate every industry into one big company, and then they're going to marry in to kind of like throw back to the days of old, where the only way you can trust, your partners is if they're in your family, and they're going to dominate every industry. And then what happens when they take over the defense industry? I mean, and it's a euphemism. We call it defense, but it's really war and weapons. Once they do that, why would we even need a government? Because they can take over the government anytime. They are going to have robots. They are going to have AI. They're going to have, incredible, quantum computers. And, in real life, we have to think about what Kurt's talking about is like, the ethics of it is going to stop people at this point and this point and this point. But, in my story, no one's going to stop the de Hubertons because everybody's for sale. And it's a simple matter to just buy them off or else, get rid of them by other means. And, when things get, when the shit hits the fan, the U.S. government's going to fall, and that's going to be years in the making. And we're going to have the Tuesday cults are going to be predicting that and preparing for that for decades. And the Tuesday cults are the people who believe in the numerology of the number 2, and they believe that there's like a holy day every time the date has an extra 2 in it. And so the holiest date of all is going to be February 22nd, 2222, and then also December 22nd, 2222, and then that's and also February 20th, 2222. So when those and February 2nd. So there's going to be 7 2s in the number only one day, and there's going to be 6 2s in the number, and that's going to be the day the government falls. And they're going to make it so because all of their prepping and all their preparation of like, their mutual aid societies and their like, their sustainable, farming and all that will make it so that the de Hubertons say, okay, everybody's preparing for this day, let's make it happen. And then they're just going to do it on Tuesday. That's going to be February 22nd, 2222. And so Elevena is going to be 24 years old then, and that's going to be when this is her mother, Esoterra. But we have Elevena here. Here's Elevena right here. She's going to be the leader of the resistance because she will be an enhanced human. She'll be smarter than average, and she'll be a scientist, and she will have a lot of secrets and a lot of technology that the street doesn't have. And that will make her a target of the de Hubertons, and that will also enable her to get rich and to create a safe haven for resistance people by the millions who will flock to her territory and her states. And then there will be a showdown, and she will have to surrender and go to jail for decades. And Turbo will meet her in prison when she's in her early 50s, let's say. But she'll have a good run, and there'll be a lot of cool stories. And that's just we're bringing in the fantasy aspect, but like I said, my first statement to lead this whole discussion off is we are definitely going to see longevity in humans, artificial longevity in humans, through drugs and robotic organs and other things. But will we see enhanced humans, and so that's where we're asking the reader to suspend disbelief and come along on a fun ride with us, into like a Mad Max world or whatever. But that possibility also exists too. And it's not, I don't think it's going to be like someone's going to be strong as the Hulk or anything, but they might be impervious to radiation. They might discover all these kind of like groundbreaking things that really change human physiology
But
and evolution.
really, why, like, other than longevity, if at that time you have robots doing all of the dangerous work, why would you want or have or need these extra abilities?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You know what I mean? I think one of the things I think is
for cosmetic purposes.
Cosmetics, sure.
Yeah, but I think one of the things we are kind of running into, and I have no doubts with Jake ramping into it, but back in the 70s and 80s, when you're post-apocalyptic movies specifically are so popular, was that there was such a back then a despair among society. What's going to happen? We need a hero. These types of mechanisms, but it was all based on just the resources, gasoline being the triggering mechanism, because the price had gone so high. You had to get in line, and and it was going all over the country that people just didn't know what was happening. Or eventually would happen. So you play the what if mechanism. But one of the things I think is really interesting about Turbo Pit Fighter is the fighter part. We have two things happening as a species within us. One is we're extremely we love being lazy. Like, if we have any opportunity to not do something and still benefit from a situation, we'll do it. But the other thing is we also love violence. We love violence. And so our main character, who is Turbo Pit Fighter, I think, and there's this, like, I hate to say basic hero complex that she's playing within let's say default, because I'm working on a page right now where Trophy Girl, who is the prize that Turbo is supposed to get for winning a fight, it's, or no, she doesn't win, excuse me, she doesn't win the fight. A fight is thrown and everything like that, but they end up coming together in the outside world, which is, falling to shit. But all of these things that we're talking about is against them. And I think the thing that is going to get also expanded upon with the Trophy Girl character, I hate to use the word empathy, but she's not a fighter.
No, her power is her attractiveness, and that makes her obviously a target, but it also is going to be this is a major spoiler, but in the last 6th issue of the graphic novel that we're planning, she's going to use her powers of seduction to save the day and to save Turbo when Turbo is having her pit fight against the unbeknownst one and losing, and then a melee breaks out because his forces are just about to turn the tide and get the whole crowd on his side, and overcome the people that are rooting for Turbo, that represents the resistance. And the Trophy Girl is going to locate a guy that has one of these prototype weapons that are still around, that are very rare, because it's this this rich guy who's like a bettor, and he's and she goes and seduces him, and she and he falls for it, even though the whole world is about to get into suicidal, homicidal fight. she's able to con him out of it because she's just so beautiful. And then she gets the gun, and she just pulls up on the pit fight, and she nails the unbeknownst one, saves Turbo's life. Turbo's like unconscious, and nick of time and everything, but it just proves that her power was the difference maker, and it was only because of her gift of attractiveness, and how like it doesn't matter what's going on, the whole world is burning all around you, and still an attractive woman can sucker a guy, just like tickling his knee, out of anything, right? And gets him into the cloakroom, and just gets the gun, and just so that I have thought about what Kurt just said, and Turbo is a little bit, Turbo's kind of like the reluctant hero, kind of like this concerned,
absorbed
gladiator that only just like get away from me and all that, but that changes when she sees the plight of the trophy girl and decides to take this on, and then that's the whole odyssey right there of the book, and then we go into flashback, and young Turbo is going to meet Elevena in prison and bring her the prototype gun, and it all kind of wraps in. We already have in issue number 2 here the destruction of the orphanage, and trying to make it all tie in and make sense. But I still have a lot of questions that are not answered about what's going to happen in this story, and especially questions for the backstory, the prequel world, because there's so many other characters before you get to this wasteland part.
I have a couple questions. Is there actually a nuclear war that actually happens?
So the megapocalypse is not a nuclear war. It is when the Dehubertans pull the string, and their AI models figure out that it's much cheaper to mass annihilate all of the people that live in big cities.
Okay, so like the buildings aren't all crumbled down and stuff like that.
No. So right. Well, I have to think about it. The buildings will be crumbled down from war, because there is a resistance, and there's a lot of mechanized fighting going on. But the people are all killed with the radioactive gas that's released by drones, and so it's relatively easy, for the Dehubertans to pull that off. And the wasteland will be, because there's battles for the survivors. There's going to be, the Dehubertans are going to control the majority of U.S. states on the North American continent, and they're going to decide to liquidate all the big cities because it's just too expensive. And then you have all these outlying areas where people are still alive, but there's going to be entire states where that are not that, like maybe like Iowa or something, where there aren't too many big cities, where the Dehubertans maintain control, and so that will be kind of like a protected world, kind of like the Hunger Games model, And and then there will be kids that need to be rescued from that world, when the distress signal goes out, and so that's why you'll have a team of infiltrators called the rectifiers that go around rescuing. But there's going to be some burnt out cities. I mean, my love of Kamandi, you just have to have it, and it could be that that there's a resistance cell, and they just drop a bomb, not a nuclear bomb, or maybe a nuclear bomb or a mini nuke. Radioactivity is going to be a big part of the story, because the currency of all the surviving people is going to, all the digital currencies that all kind of like compete for supremacy are all eventually replaced after the megapocalypse with radioactive peas, and those are not only tokens that people buy and sell things with, but you can also put them into your engine of your car, or you can put them into your weapon, and shoot, and so it'll be the source of energy and the money combined in those days.
Right. Okay, so I have some more questions about the other stuff, like the Substack and stuff. Are the stories that you have that you're wanting other artists and stuff to do, is that in script form? Is that in comic book script form?
Yeah, two examples of that are 6-pagers that are in comic script form, but all the other storylines could very easily be adapted if I found a collaborator and they were like, hey, I really like this character, or I really like this storyline. It doesn't take too long for me to do a script, or to do like the Marvel method where we work up like a synopsis. It depends if I got somebody on the hook for a whole issue and they wanted to do it, we'd work that out, and then I could provide full scripts. Sometimes they want to be a co-scripter, which I understand, and just I would just give the the major outlines and maybe some some key dialogue points. But there's always a give and take, because if you're doing a script and the artist is sticking strictly to the script, then it might not be as fulfilling for them. And if they I like drawing like hot rods, or I like doing like aliens or monsters or whatever, you want to incorporate that in whatever the person's whatever their passions are.
Yeah. Also, what are you planning on, like, say somebody does one of your scripts or two of your scripts or whatever, what are you thinking for publishing or getting it out there or whatever?
So we're hoping later in this year to put a 6-pager in an anthology that's going to contain the next 6 pages of Turbo, the Ken Landgraf 6-pager, whether that's the Casualties one that we're submitting him now or a different one, and then a guest artist, because that would be 3 6-pagers, which is a substantial book. Now, we also have the 2-pager for Kromita that you're going to be premiering in Funk, but we're also... Oh, that's going to be in number 2?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Why not?
Great. And then we just have literally unlimited, amounts of sketches and prose from the Substack, like literally, 80,000 words. I must have like 24, sketches that are, finished quality, or else you could just publish them as is. And, that's what I was going to show out of this stack here to Kurt, because I haven't updated him in a while, but all these different characters are in the Substack, and these are all different scenes. So we could very easily fill a 32 plus 4 book before this calendar year is out. If everything falls into place with Ken, if Ken has this on his schedule, like Ken's 6-pager is going to be like really valuable, a part of it. But we have our Turbo next 6 pages too, and this will require people, if they're keeping up with the story, to to have this Turbo Teaser 2 already, because you're not going to get the first 12 pages in repeated. Like, we did the first 6 pages and then we accumulated the first 12, repeating the first 6. So, but the first edition of the teaser is all sold out anyway, so that doesn't really matter. But we're asking people to just just jump in the story, and it's kind of like a heavy metal format where you have these little anthologies. I think heavy metal might have done like 10 or 12 page sections or something, but ours is just going to be 6 at a time, because that's our pace. We're on a slower pace.
That sounds great. That sounds fantastic. So you're looking at like a 32-page book, an anthology.
We're hoping for that, yeah. And a lot depends on. I mean, because I'm gonna be paying Ken Landgraf his going rate, so that is going to be depleting an art fund that I have. But it's also possible that we maybe we hire one of the mercs off of Reddit or the Facebook group. Right. If we can negotiate a price that I can still afford, or maybe we go into a partnership deal where, you know, somebody else is doing it and they'll have co-ownership of the IP, which is also a cool model if the person, you know,
Yeah.
can afford to do that. Like some of these guys are literally trying to pay their rent in other countries, so you understand where they're coming from. But you know, if you're a comic creator, every comic strip you do is an investment in your future if you retain the rights to it, you know, because you'll eventually have your coffee table book and you'll be able to publish it, you know, every couple of years or whenever, you know, put it in anthologies, you know, just, you know, use it, you know, exploit it. You know, if you have a sequence that's done and finished and sitting, you might as well keep publishing it in whatever venue you can, you know. So there's some people that, you know, cotton to that, but you know, I don't imagine people that are just starting out are thinking about that yet.
Right, right. No, there's definitely different levels of people's careers that they, you know, you start off and you'll just do anything, you know, and
Yeah, you
then
want to
you
get
just kind
published.
of,
You want to
yeah,
sit. You
yeah,
want to sit at a table at a con and have like a couple of things to show, and to sell, right? And that's the other sweetener is printed copies, because if you're a publisher, you know, I don't care if you're a big publisher or a small publisher, you get a discount, uh, you know, on the unit price by the number that you order. Right, it just goes
yeah,
straight down. The more you order, the less they each cost.
yeah, yeah.
So you're
Which is,
better off paying a contributor in printed copies if you can strike that, you know, strike that negotiation, because then it makes your price point lower, and both people have, you know, cheaper copies that they can turn around and sell for full retail at cons or in catalogs or online or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
definitely. Plus, people just like copies of their books, the you know, the stuff that they're in, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
when we finally finish Turbo #1, I'm thinking that I want to print it offset, you know,
yeah,
and just invest. And I don't care if I have boxes of it laying around. This is going to be a, you know, an accomplishment. And you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I've done that before. I sold 5,000 copies of a comic before. It takes 10 years, you know, but
It with Mutantis, it took 30 something years before I you know, got
yeah,
any kind of recuperation from that.
So just a time
Whatever.
check, gentlemen. We've got six
yeah.
minutes
Yeah,
left, and Jake, I would like to give the floor over to Alex, and you know, if he has any questions for us
I do.
um, on definitely on the 2-pager, the Kromita 2-pager, which is going to go into. I've sent him Jake's polished edits, so he has those files. But you know, the whole reason we got Jake on, we got Alex on in the first place is, you know, Alex does a superior job being a part of a lot of anthology zines, and we're looking at Funk 1, which Jake and I
Yeah,
missed
yep.
getting on. But please, let's hear what's happening.
Folks should buy this.
I'm gonna get Funk 1, 2, and 3 together before I kickstarted or decide whatever. I that's the plan, is to do a Kickstarter for it. But I want 3 issues done. And then I don't know where it's going to go after that. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of different awesome artists, and you guys are included in the second issue. And the second issue is pretty much done. The third issue, people are like straggling in and stuff, and it's really, a lot of it is just me figuring out the time that I can put towards doing this stuff. I kind of spread myself a little too thin sometimes.
And folks can buy Funk #1 right now, right?
No.
No,
This
Oh.
isn't
it's
for
all
sale.
he's putting him. He's in stockpiling the issues before they go into, because then people understand that there's stuff there to get to, because it's completed, instead of this dreamy, wishy-washy world.
Well, yeah,
comics have a tendency to get into.
Right.
Go ahead, Alex.
Right, and the fact that I originally wanted it to be monthly, and that just, you know, had is never going to happen. It's just getting that amount of artists together. That's like a full-time job, publishing and doing that. And I just don't
Yeah.
have the time to devote to something like that. But if we can get the first 3 issues all done, and then if we can do a Kickstarter, and then there's some other things that we can do
So it could
to
be
promote
monthly
it.
for 3 months, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could be a bi-monthly or quarterly or whatever, something like that. But before we go, I gotta something real quick. I want to ask both of you is I have this new thing that I'm working on, and it's called Morgrim, the Savage Cyclops, and he's kind of my Conan character. But in my whole universe, my random access universe, I'm doing this thing with the new god, with the not the new gods, with the old gods, and how Morgrim actually locks the old gods away because they're evil. They're tyrants or whatever. They're just horrible gods. So he locks them away. But I have different timelines where like cultists are trying to resurrect them or release them and stuff like that. So the old gods have played a significant role in Morgrim. So I'm asking all of my comic book friends if they would create an old god for me. And you may have seen Jamie Barrow's old god of strength, where he has like the a planet above his head, and so there's a bunch of people contributing old gods, and I'm gonna have a compendium that goes along with random access and or this. I'm going to release this in random access, and then I'm going to release it on its own. So I'm asking you guys if you can always say no. Everyone's busy, everyone's doing their own thing. I totally understand that, and I'm not asking for like a full illustration or anything. Just maybe a cool name, a cool character of an old god.
I love that idea. That sounds fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could do a character design sheet.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
The only restriction is no tentacles.
Right, because you got that already. Yeah, I was gonna say,
every old god would be tentacles.
I was gonna say, how do you know if an idea is already taken? Like, if we do the old god of ketchup and somebody already has that, how do we know? How do we?
Oh God!
Is there like so you want to give somebody the head up?
I have
the list. Look at that.
I have a list of the gods that have been taken and have names and who's done it. Like you can see, Mutandis is actually an old god, and that works into my whole Mutandis everything. And so this is a list. I mean, this isn't a you don't have to stick to this list. If you had some other idea, that would be perfectly okay too.
Right.
But this is just like a kind of an overview of what I have, and like I have from Chris Knox, I have the Walker, who's an old god of nomads, and he has an avatar giant avatar that just like randomly walks in the world, and I have a feeling that he's searching for something.
Right. Yeah, that says a lot.
So if you guys are into that, that would be really fantastic.
All right. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to mull it over about which will be the the god of what, and then we'll screw around with some character designs.
Cool.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing that you really can jam on, like in one of those drink and draws.
Yeah.
That'd be fun as hell.
Yeah. So, Kurt, how are we doing on time? Because I have a question for Alex too.
You got 1 minute.
Okay. Alex, so maybe we'll talk about this off air. But I have this completed comic, Pearl White Malady, all done, and this is a project I worked on with my students. And I'm sure I mentioned this before. But I'm looking at this point, it's 32 plus 4. I'm looking at this point for it to be scanned and printed.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you do that service, obviously for pay, but for just like any other print shop.
I do 32 color pages.
Yes.
You're probably looking at $2. a copy.
Sold.
Jeez.
So that's great. But I need
Depending on how many you want.
so I need the scans first, because there's gonna be one page, this page, that I have to lay in some typewriter stuff. This is going to be the inside front cover. This is going to be page 1. I have a full color cover already done in high res, JPEG, TIFF, whatever, and everything else is in here. It's literally finished, except for I'm just going to touch up like the inside back cover. This is the back cover and inside back cover, and I have to decide which is which, and that's the only thing holding up this whole job. So.
The only thing is, if you want to do the layouts, like I do all the layouts, obviously, for random access, and they're not always, like I'm not a professional printer. I don't have software. I work on Autodesk Sketchbook, and that doesn't have like an auto snap. So I pretty much eyeball the layouts. The 4 pages have the page has to be split into the 4 different pages, like one, the first page, and the last.
Yeah, I mean, I could do all that for you.
So if you do that, then that speeds up the process and everything. And the better job you do, the more even and straight and everything it'll be.
So what's your print size of your?
So you guys, we can't go any further because we've got a instructor.
Take us out, and we will continue. We will continue this, but folks, you just saw on the air how people start to talk about a job. Kurt, we appreciate anybody that's gotten this far, and folks, remember, you should always not watch us on Instagram. You should watch us on YouTube.
6 people on YouTube. 6 people on YouTube. Want to thank you personally, right here and now, sticking with us.
Sinister 6.
6. So we've been growing every Sunday, or I can't say every Sunday, every other Sunday or so. We're getting a little bit more people waking up early and joining us, and absolutely can't thank you enough. And I also have to say, I'm going to guess that a lot of people are actually coming over from Instagram. So, but other than that, Alex, give us your take. Where everybody can find you, and then Jake and I will close this one down.
More importantly than where they can find me, which is alexanderturbin.com. You can find all of my stuff. But I have polls every week. Me and my partner, Joe, we look at 2 different artists, and we have polls up on YouTube. So if you could check out the different polls, this week is it was Dale Keown and McGuire, Kevin McGuire. So it's a lot of fun. Do the polls and just checking out 2 different amazing comic book artists and seeing who likes who more.
That's fun. Yeah, it's a real conversation starter. Folks, you should also put Alexander Turbin in Google, and then that'll bring you right to his web links anyway. You can check out our other episodes. We have our Indie Creator Exchange, where we do interviews and we do flip throughs of other indie creators. And then you can check out our other series, which is called Comics That Influence, where we do flip throughs of our favorite comics and our favorite finds and our favorite hauls. So check out those 3 things. Don't forget to come right back here next Sunday, right around 10 Eastern, for the making of Turbo Pit Fighter, where we will be well on our way for another page and another story and another episode.
Right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next Sunday.
See you in the funny papers.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. Make sure everybody's
got to collate.
Yeah.
Is that what it's doing?
We gotta collect everything. Yeah, you're almost at 100%. Oh, boom! All right, everybody's in. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, hate to jump out to it so quickly, Alex, but
I got it. I understand.
We're gonna definitely get you back on because we love having you on. And
we can just talk forever and ever.
I would, and you know what? One day we will, because once Jake gets out of this real job situation, like I said, I have some nightmares and dreams about how often we